Let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. The gentle squeak of sneakers against polished hardwood echoed through the empty gymnasium of Lincoln Heights Elementary. 10-year-old Katie Jimenez dribbled the basketball with the kind of focused determination that made her forget everything else around her. The morning sun filtered through the high windows, casting long shadows across the court as she practiced the same layup routine she'd done hundreds of times before. The young girl had arrived an hour early for school every day for the past 3 months, borrowing the janitor's keys to practice. Her small hands had grown calloused from the rough texture of the ball, but she didn't mind. Katie had a dream, and she wasn't going to let anything stand in her way. The sound of the gymnasium door creaking open broke her concentration. Coach Robert Mitchell stood in the doorway, his clipboard tucked under his arm as he watched Katie's perfect form sink another basket. Behind him, physical education teacher Michelle Lewis crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. "Katie," Coach Mitchell called out, his voice echoing in the empty gym. "We need to talk." The ball bounced away as Katie jogged over, her ponytail swinging with each step. The smile on her face began to fade as she noticed their serious expressions. "I saw your name on the sign-up sheet for basketball tryouts," Coach Mitchell began, clearing his throat. "I'm afraid I'll have to remove it." Katie's heart sank. "But why? I've been practicing every morning. I know all the plays, and I can make free throws better than—" "It's not about your skill level," Michelle Lewis cut in, her voice sharp and decisive. "The boys' team is already full, and we don't have a girls' team. It's just not possible." "But that's not fair," Katie protested, her voice trembling. "Just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I can't play." Coach Mitchell shifted uncomfortably. "Those are the rules, Katie. Maybe you could try volleyball or—" "No!" Katie interrupted, tears welling in her eyes. "Basketball is my dream. You can't just tell me I can't play because I'm a girl." The gym fell silent, except for the distant sound of the first morning bell. Other students would be arriving soon, filing into their classrooms, going about their normal routines. But for Katie, nothing would ever feel normal about this moment. "I'm sorry," Coach Mitchell said, turning to leave. "That's just how it is." Katie stood alone in the middle of the court, watching them walk away. The basketball she'd been practicing, with rolled to a stop against the wall, forgotten. As tears rolled down her cheeks, she pulled out her phone and did something that would change everything. She opened social media and started typing. "Dear Mr. Jordan," she began, her fingers shaking as she typed. "My name is Katie, and today I was told I couldn't play basketball because I'm a girl." Little did Katie know, her message would soon catch the attention of not just her small town of Lincoln Heights, but the entire basketball world. And Michael Jordan himself was about to prove that some rules were meant to be broken. In the distance, the second bell rang. But Katie remained in the gym, her dream seemingly shattered but her spirit unbroken. Sometimes, the biggest victories come after the hardest defeats, and Katie Jimenez was about to learn that lesson in the most extraordinary way possible. What came next would not only change Katie's life, but would spark a conversation about gender equality in sports that would echo across the nation. But first, she had to make it through what felt like the longest school day of her life, clutching her phone and hoping for a response that seemed impossible. The stage was set for an unlikely encounter between a basketball legend and a small-town girl who refused to give up on her dreams. And it all began with a simple message sent from an empty gymnasium on a quiet morning in Lincoln Heights. Walking through the hallways that day, Katie felt like a ghost. Her classmates' chatter and laughter seemed distant, muffled by the weight of her disappointment. In Mr. James Wood's mathematics class, she couldn't focus on the equations on the board. Instead, she found herself drawing basketball courts in the margins of her notebook, X's and O's, moving in practice plays she might never get to execute. During lunch period, Katie sat with her best friend Lauren Dawson, who noticed something was wrong immediately. "You look like someone deflated your basketball," Lauren said, sliding into the seat across from her. "They won't let me try out for the team," Katie mumbled, pushing her food around on her tray. "Coach Mitchell said it's because there's no girls' team." Lauren's face flushed with anger. "That's ridiculous. You're better than half the boys who are trying out." "That's what I thought too," Katie replied, pulling out her phone to show Lauren the message she'd sent to Michael Jordan's official social media account. "I know he probably won't see it, but I had to try something." Lauren's eyes widened as she read the heartfelt message. Katie had poured everything into those words, her passion for the game, her daily practice routine, and the crushing disappointment of being denied a chance simply because of her gender. "My dad always says Michael Jordan never gave up," Katie continued, her voice growing stronger. "He got cut from his high school team, but kept practicing until he became the greatest player ever. Maybe he'll understand." The afternoon dragged on endlessly. In physical education class, Katie felt Michelle Lewis's eyes on her as she deliberately chose to practice soccer instead of joining the pickup basketball game happening on the other side of the gym. Her protest might have been silent, but it spoke volumes. After school, Katie found herself back in the empty gymnasium. The same space that had been her sanctuary now felt different, both foreign and familiar at once. She retrieved her basketball from where it had rolled that morning, its rough surface a comfort against her palms. The janitor, Mr. Daniel Martin, watched from the doorway as Katie began her usual routine. He'd been letting her in early every morning for months, recognizing the same drive he'd seen in his own daughter years ago. "Heard what happened this morning," he said quietly, leaning on his mop. "Doesn't seem right to me." Katie paused mid-dribble. "Did you know they had a girls' team here once, Mr. Martin? I found an old trophy in the display case from 1985. What happened to it?" "Budget cuts," he replied, shaking his head. "But things that get cut can grow back stronger if you've got the right gardener." He gave her a knowing look before continuing his work, leaving Katie to ponder his words. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the court, Katie's phone suddenly buzzed. Probably just Lauren sending another supportive message, she thought. But when she checked the screen, her heart nearly stopped. The notification showed her post had been shared over 1,000 times in just a few hours. Comments were pouring in from across the country. Former WNBA players, college coaches, and basketball fans of all ages were rallying behind her cause. Her simple message had struck a chord that was resonating far beyond Lincoln Heights. Among the flood of notifications, one comment stood out. It was from Heather Martin, a local news reporter with Channel 7. "Katie, I'd love to tell your story. This is exactly the kind of thing our community needs to talk about." Katie's hands trembled as she showed the phone to Mr. Martin. "What should I do?" The janitor smiled. "Sometimes the ball bounces in unexpected ways, Katie. You just have to be ready to catch it." That evening at the Jimenez household, Katie's parents, Michael Reyes and Jennifer Valdez, sat at the kitchen table reviewing the reporter's message. Their daughter's story was about to go public, and they needed to make sure they were making the right decision. "Mija," her father said, using his special nickname for her, "are you sure you want to do this? Once your story is out there, there's no taking it back." Katie looked at the basketball she'd been carrying all day, her constant companion through this emotional roller coaster. "Dad, remember when you taught me about Michael Jordan's flu game? How he played even when everything was against him?" Her mother reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "This is different, Katie. This isn't just about playing through pain. This is about changing people's minds." "Maybe that's even more important," Katie replied, her voice steady and clear. "If I don't try to change things, what about the next girl who wants to play? Or the one after that? As her parents exchanged glances, Katie's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Dr. James Hale, DDS, the head of the school board. Somehow, word had already reached him about the brewing controversy. "They want to have an emergency meeting tomorrow morning," her father read aloud, his eyebrows raised. "Looks like you've got their attention, Mija." Katie should have felt triumphant, but instead she felt the weight of responsibility settling on her young shoulders. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every girl who'd ever been told she couldn't do something because of who she was. That night, as she lay in bed, Katie found herself unable to sleep. She kept checking her phone, watching as the support continued to pour in. Ashley Garcia, a college basketball player she'd read about, had shared her story. William Ward, a famous sports commentator, had tweeted about it. The movement was growing, spreading like wildfire across social media platforms. But still, no word from Michael Jordan himself. Katie closed her eyes, remembering all the posters of Jordan on her bedroom walls, all the videos she'd studied of his perfect form, all the stories she'd read about his legendary determination. In her heart, she knew that even if he never saw her message, she was following in his footsteps in her own way, refusing to let anyone else define her limitations. Tomorrow would bring the school board meeting, the news interview, and who knew what else. But tonight, in the quiet of her room, Katie Jimenez made a promise to herself. This was just the beginning. Win or lose, she would show them all exactly what a girl with a dream could do. As she finally drifted off to sleep, her basketball sat in its usual spot next to her bed, waiting for tomorrow's practice session. Whether it would be in an official team setting or alone in an empty gym was yet to be determined. But one thing was certain: Katie Jimenez wasn't going to stop playing, no matter what anyone said. The next morning would bring changes that nobody in Lincoln Heights could have predicted, and at the center of it all was a 10-year-old girl who dared to question the rules, a viral message that captured the nation's attention, and the looming possibility of a response from the greatest basketball player of all time. Dawn broke over Lincoln Heights with unusual energy crackling through the air. Local news vans from Channel 7 lined the street outside the school, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like metal sunflowers. Reporter Heather Martin adjusted her blazer, checking her reflection in the van's window, while her cameraman, Anthony Morrison, set up his equipment. Inside the school board's meeting room, Dr. James Hale sat at the head of a long oak table, surrounded by board members William Mitchell, Christina Miller, and Angela Stafford. The tension in the room was palpable as they reviewed the overnight social media statistics on their tablets. "Over 100,000 shares," Christina Miller murmured, shaking her head. "I never thought our little town would attract this kind of attention." Before anyone could respond, Principal David Campbell burst through the door, his tie slightly askew. "You need to see this," he said, turning on the wall-mounted television. The morning news was playing, and there on the screen was a familiar face that made everyone in the room freeze. Charles Green Jr., the NBA's Director of Youth Development, was speaking to a national audience. "The situation in Lincoln Heights has brought to light an ongoing issue in youth sports. We're watching this case very closely." Dr. Hale loosened his collar. "This is bigger than we anticipated." Outside in the school parking lot, Katie stepped out of her parents' car, clutching her basketball like a shield. The crowd of reporters surged forward, but a tall figure stepped between them and Katie. It was Coach Robert Mitchell, his expression conflicted but determined. "No comments until after the meeting," he announced, guiding Katie and her parents toward the building. As they walked, he leaned down to Katie's ear. "For what it's worth, kid, you've got me thinking about a lot of things." The meeting room fell, silent as Katie entered with her parents. Jennifer Valdez squeezed her daughter's hand, while Michael Reyes stood protectively behind them. The school board members shuffled their papers, avoiding direct eye contact with the family. Dr. Hale cleared his throat. Before we begin, I should inform everyone that we've received calls from the State Education Board, 3 civil rights organizations, and... He paused, checking his notes. The office of Senator Elizabeth Thornton. A knock at the door interrupted. Him. Principal Campbell's secretary, Lisa Ritter, poked her head in. I'm sorry, but you all need to see what's happening outside. The group moved to the windows overlooking the school's main entrance. The crowd had grown exponentially. Among the reporters and curious onlookers, a sea of young girls had gathered, each holding a basketball. At their head stood Lauren Dawson, Katie's best friend, and beside her was Michelle Lewis, the PE teacher who had denied Katie just yesterday, now holding a sign that read, "Let them play." Those girls, Angela Stafford began, they're all from different schools across the district, and some from out of state, Christina Miller added, pointing to the license plates in the parking lot. Back at the table, Katie's father spoke up. My daughter just wanted to play basketball. Now look what's happened. She's shown us how many other girls want the same chance. The television in the room suddenly caught everyone's attention again. A breaking news banner flashed across the screen as sportscaster Ryan Richardson appeared. We're receiving reports that Michael Jordan's representatives have issued a statement regarding the Lincoln Heights basketball controversy. The room collectively held its breath. Katie's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. This was the moment she'd been waiting for, but nothing could have prepared her for what came next. Michael Jordan isn't just issuing a statement, Ryan Richardson continued, his voice filled with excitement. His private jet has just landed at Lincoln Heights Regional Airport. The basketball legend is heading to the school himself. The room erupted in chaos. Dr. Hale's phone began ringing incessantly. Principal Campbell rushed out to address the growing crowd. Through it all, Katie stood rooted to the spot, her basketball still clutched tightly in her hands. Katie, Michelle Lewis called from the doorway, her earlier opposition forgotten in the magnitude of the moment. You should see this. Following her to the gymnasium, Katie stopped short at the entrance. The space that had been her private sanctuary was now filled with television crews, and at center court stood Heather Martin, broadcasting live. We're here at Lincoln Heights Elementary, where a young girl's fight to play basketball has captured the attention of the sporting world, Heather reported. In just 24 hours, Katie Jimenez's story has become a symbol for gender equality in youth sports. And now, with Michael Jordan himself en route, a commotion at the gym's main entrance cut her off. Security officer Daniel Bradford rushed in, speaking urgently into his radio. He's here. Michael Jordan is in the building. The gymnasium doors swung open and time seemed to stop. There, framed in the doorway, stood the greatest basketball player of all time. Michael Jordan, dressed in a sharp suit, his presence filling the room with an almost tangible energy. But he wasn't alone. Behind him came a procession of WNBA stars, led by some of the most prominent female basketball players in the country. They filed into the gym, each carrying a basketball, each wearing a determined expression. Jordan's eyes scanned the crowd until they found Katie. With the same purposeful stride that had carried him to 6 NBA championships, he walked directly to her. The gym fell completely silent. Katie Jimenez, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the now packed gymnasium. I got your message. Katie, who had dreamed of this moment since she first picked up a basketball, found herself speechless. Jordan knelt down to her eye level, took the basketball from her trembling hands, and spun it on his finger, a move she'd practiced countless times. You know, he continued, they once told me I couldn't play either. You know what I did? Katie nodded, finding her voice. You practiced harder. You proved them wrong. Jordan smiled, and in that smile was decades of breaking barriers and defying expectations. That's right, but you've done something even better. You didn't just fight for yourself. You showed everyone that this fight is bigger than one person." He stood, addressing the entire gymnasium, his voice taking on the commanding tone that had led teams to championships. "Today, we're not just here to talk about letting one girl play basketball. We're here to change the game." The crowd erupted in cheers, but Jordan held up his hand for silence. "I've brought some friends with me," he gestured to the WNBA players, "and we've got an announcement to make. But first..." He turned back to Katie, bouncing her basketball once on the hardwood floor. "How about you show us what you can do?" Katie caught the ball as it bounced back up, muscle memory taking over despite her nerves. The crowd parted, creating a clear path to the basket. In that moment, she felt the weight of every girl's dreams resting on her shoulders. She took a deep breath, remembering all those morning practice sessions, all the hours spent perfecting her form. Then, with the same determination that had started this whole journey, Katie Jimenez began to dribble. What happened next would become the stuff of legends, a moment that would be shared millions of times, inspire countless young athletes, and change the landscape of youth sports in ways that nobody in that gymnasium could have predicted. But first, Katie had to make the shot of her life. With her hero watching and the world holding its breath, the atmosphere in Lincoln Heights Elementary's gymnasium had transformed from a place of disappointment to an arena of possibilities. Kelly Anderson stood confidently before the assembled. A crowd, her business suit a stark contrast to the basketball jerseys around her. "My company is prepared to fully fund girls' basketball programs, not just here in Lincoln Heights, but in every school district in the state," she announced, a voice carrying across the now silent gym. "Sometimes it takes one person to show us what needs to change. Katie Jimenez did that." Michael Jordan nodded approvingly, still standing next to Katie at center court. "But we're not stopping there," he added, gesturing to Nicholas Forbes, his foundation's director, who stepped forward with a leather portfolio. "The Jordan brand is establishing the Katie Jimenez Scholarship," Nicholas announced, "a nationwide program to support young female athletes who break barriers. And Lincoln Heights will be home to our first Jordan Girls Basketball Academy." Katie's parents, watching from the bleachers, held each other tightly. Jennifer Valdez couldn't hold back her tears as she watched her daughter standing alongside her hero, representing something so much bigger than they had ever imagined. Principal David Campbell, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "I think we owe someone an apology," he said, looking directly at Katie. "Sometimes it takes a child to show adults when they're wrong. On behalf of the school administration, I apologize for not seeing what was right in front of us." Coach Robert Mitchell moved through the crowd, carrying something in his hands. It was a Lincoln Heights basketball jersey, brand new, with Jimenez printed on the back. "Katie," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "would you do us the honor of being the first player on our new girls' team?" But before Katie could respond, Michelle Lewis interrupted, holding up her hand. "Actually," she said, stepping forward with purpose, "I'd like to volunteer to coach the girls' team. That is, if Katie thinks I deserve the chance to make things right." The gym fell silent again, all eyes turning to Katie. This was more than just about playing basketball now. It was about forgiveness, growth, and change. Katie looked at Michelle Lewis, seeing past the teacher who had denied her to someone who was willing to learn and evolve. "Everyone deserves a second chance," Katie said, smiling. "That's what sports teach us, right?" Jordan laughed, the sound bouncing off the gymnasium walls. "Wisdom from the youngest person in the room. That's what I'm talking about." But the surprises weren't over. Heather Martin, who had been broadcasting live throughout the event, received some breaking news through her earpiece. Her eyes widened as she quickly moved to the center of the court. "We're getting reports," she announced, her voice trembling with excitement, "that schools across the country are following Lincoln Heights' lead. The National Youth Sports Association has just announced new guidelines requiring equal opportunities in all school sports programs. The gymnasium erupted in cheers, but through the celebration, Jordan raised his hand for attention. "Katie," he said, pulling something from his jacket pocket, "I brought something for you. This is the ball from my last championship game. I've been saving it for someone special, someone who knows that the biggest victories don't always happen on the court." Katie took the ball with shaking hands, her fingers tracing over the worn leather. Jordan wasn't done, though. He turned to address the crowd, his voice taking on the commanding tone that had inspired teammates throughout his legendary career. "Today isn't just about basketball," he declared. "It's about courage. The courage to stand up when everyone tells you to. Sit down. The courage to shoot your shot, even when people say you can't play." Katie didn't just want to play basketball. She wanted to change the game, and that's exactly what she did. Lauren Dawson, who had been watching from the sidelines, rushed forward to hug her best friend. "You did it, Katie. You really did it." But Katie shook her head, looking around at all the young girls who'd gathered in the gymnasium. "We did it," she corrected. "All of us." The next hour was a blur of activity. Jordan and the WNBA players organized an impromptu basketball clinic, teaching fundamentals to the eager group of girls who had gathered. Katie moved among them, no longer an outsider but a leader, helping younger girls with their dribbling technique. Dr. James Hale, watching from the sidelines with Angela Stafford and Christina Miller, shook his head in amazement. "Look at how many of them there are," he said softly. "How did we not see this before?" "Sometimes the best view comes from looking up from the bottom," Angela replied, watching as Katie helped a younger girl perfect her shooting form. "Maybe we needed a 10-year-old to show us the way." As the afternoon wore on, the national media continued to arrive. Reporter after reporter asked Katie for interviews, but she politely declined, preferring to stay on the court with the other girls. This was where she belonged, not in front of cameras, but on the hardwood, doing what she loved. Michael Jordan watched it all with satisfaction, standing next to Nicholas Forbes as they finalized details for the new academy. "You know," Jordan said, "when I got that message yesterday, I thought it would be a simple thing. Come down, support the cause, maybe shoot some hoops. But this kid, she started something bigger than basketball." Nicholas nodded, looking at his phone. "Social media is exploding. Let Them Play is trending worldwide. Schools across the country are announcing new girls' sports programs. It's like dominoes falling." As the day began to wind down, Katie found herself back at center court, but this time she wasn't alone. Dozens of girls stood with her, each holding a basketball, each wearing a smile that spoke of new possibilities. Coach Michelle Lewis stood before them, clipboard in hand, ready to begin the first practice of the Lincoln Heights girls basketball team. "All right, ladies," Michelle called out, her voice strong and clear. "Let's show them what we can do." The sound of basketballs bouncing in unison filled the gymnasium. A rhythm of change, a beat of progress, a symphony of dreams finally being realized. And at the center of it all was Katie Jimenez, the girl who had dared to question the rules, who had reached out to her hero, and who had changed not just her own future, but the future of countless girls who would follow in her footsteps. As the sun began to set outside the gymnasium windows, casting long shadows across the court, Katie looked up at the empty basket. She thought about all the mornings she had spent here alone, practicing, hoping, dreaming. Now, as she watched the other girls running drills, heard their laughter and encouragement, she realized something profound. Sometimes the biggest victories come not from what you achieve for yourself, but from what you make possible for others. Michael Jordan's words echoed in her mind. Katie didn't just want to play basketball, she wanted to change the game. And that's exactly what she had done. One dribble, one post, one message at a time. The story of Katie Jimenez and the Lincoln Heights girls basketball team would be told for years to come, inspiring generations of young athletes to stand up for their dreams, to challenge the status quo, and to remember that sometimes the most powerful change starts with a single voice willing to speak up. But for now, in this moment, Katie was exactly where she belonged, on a basketball court, surrounded by teammates, living her dream and helping others achieve theirs. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all. 1 year later, the Lincoln Heights Elementary Gymnasium buzzed with excitement. Banners hung from the rafters, not just the old boys' championship pennants, but new ones celebrating the girls' team's unprecedented first season. Among them, a fresh banner stood out: Katie Jimenez Girls Basketball Academy, grand opening. Katie, now 11, stood at center court, her posture confident but humble. She wore her team jersey with pride, the number 23 gleaming on her back, a personal gift from Michael Jordan himself. Around her, hundreds of young girls filled the bleachers, each clutching registration forms for the Academy's inaugural season. Principal David Campbell approached the microphone, clearing his throat. 1 year ago, in this very gymnasium, we witnessed something extraordinary. Not just a young girl standing up for her right to play, but a movement that transformed youth sports across the nation. In the front row, Dr. James Hale sat with the school board members, including Christina Miller and Angela Stafford. Beside them was Kelly Anderson, whose company had not only funded the girls' programs as promised, but had expanded their initiative nationwide. Since that day, Principal Campbell continued, over 500 schools across the country have established new girls' sports programs. The Katie Jimenez Scholarship has helped 30 young athletes pursue their dreams. But perhaps most importantly, we've learned that change can come from the most unexpected places, even from a 10-year-old girl with a basketball and a dream. Coach Michelle Lewis, now the head of the girls' basketball program, stepped forward. The past year had transformed her as much as anyone. "I was wrong," she began, her voice carrying across the hushed gymnasium. "I was part of a system that said no without questioning why. But Katie taught us all something valuable. Sometimes the most important plays in life happen off the court." Lauren Dawson, still Katie's best friend and now team co-captain, squeezed Katie's hand as they watched a video montage playing on the giant screen. Images flashed by, Katie's first official game, the team's first victory, and countless shots of young girls discovering their love for basketball. Nicholas Forbes, representing the Jordan brand, took the podium next. "The Katie Jimenez Academy isn't just about basketball," he explained. "It's about creating opportunities, breaking barriers, and showing the world that talent knows no gender." Today, we're proud to announce that this academy will serve as the model for 20 more facilities across the country. The crowd erupted in applause, but the biggest surprise was yet to come. The gymnasium doors swung open, and Michael Jordan himself strode in, accompanied by several WNBA stars who had become regular mentors at the academy. The young girls in the bleachers gasped in excitement. "A year ago," Jordan began, his voice commanding immediate attention, "I received a message that reminded me why I fell in love with this game. Basketball isn't just about who can jump the highest or score the most points. It's about heart, determination, and the courage to stand up for what's right." He gestured to Katie. "This young lady showed us that the future of basketball is bigger than any one person, any one team, or any one gender. Katie, would you like to tell everyone your news?" Katie stepped forward, her confidence evident in every move. The past year had changed her too. She was no longer just a girl who wanted to play basketball. She had become a leader, a symbol, and most importantly, a champion for change. Next month, she announced, her voice clear and strong. "I'll be speaking at the National Youth Sports Congress about equal opportunities in athletics. But that's not all." She paused, looking out at the sea of young faces. "We're starting a mentorship program. Every girl in our academy will have the chance to become a mentor for younger players, creating a chain of support that will continue long after we've graduated." Jennifer Valdez and Michael Reyes watched from the sidelines, their eyes glistening with pride. Their daughter had not only achieved her dream, but had created a legacy that would impact generations to come. The ceremony continued with demonstrations from the Academy's inaugural class. Katie led a group of young girls through drills, her teaching style reflecting everything she'd learned about leadership and perseverance. The gym echoed with the sound of bouncing basketballs and enthusiastic cheers. Among the spectators was Heather Martin, the reporter who had first covered Katie's story. She watched as Katie worked with a particularly shy young girl, showing her how to properly hold the ball. "Some stories," she said to her cameraman, Anthony Morrison, "are about more than just news. They're about changing the world." As the day drew to a close, Katie found herself back at her favorite spot, the free throw line in the now empty gymnasium. Coach Michelle Lewis approached, carrying a framed photo of last year's viral moment when Katie had made that crucial shot in front of Jordan. "You know what I see when I look at this?" Michelle asked, handing the frame to Katie. "I see the moment everything changed, not just for you, but for all of us." Katie studied the photo, remembering the fear, the determination, and the pure joy of that day. "I just wanted to play basketball," she said softly. "And now thousands of girls will get that chance," Michelle replied. "Sometimes the biggest dreams start with the smallest moments." The next morning, as always, Katie arrived early to practice, but this time she wasn't alone. Dozens of girls were already there, balls bouncing, shoes squeaking on the hardwood. Among them was that shy young girl from yesterday, attempting the same drills Katie had shown her. Katie watched as the girl's shot fell short, but instead of getting discouraged, she immediately chased down the rebound and tried again. And in that moment, Katie saw herself from a year ago, determined, resilient, unwilling to take no for an answer. The girl's next shot went in perfectly, and her face lit up with joy. She turned to Katie with a huge smile, and Katie felt something she hadn't expected, the realization that her story wasn't ending. It was just beginning, reflected in every young girl who would step onto this court. As the morning sun streamed through the gymnasium windows, casting long rays across the hardwood floor, Katie picked up a basketball and joined the practice. The sound of multiple balls bouncing echoed through the gym, no longer a solo performance, but a symphony of dreams being realized. And somewhere in that rhythm was the beat of change, the pulse of progress, and the heart of a story that had started with one girl's message and grown into a movement that would inspire generations to come. Let us know in the comments, what dream are you fighting for today?